All right, everybody, we're about to get started, so if you can take your seat, and we will get this kicked off.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Becky Daggett, and I'd like to welcome you to City Hall and to this update on Spruce Wash and the museum fire flooding. I think you'll learn tonight that staff has made great strides, and I know that this is a anxiety-inducing topic, and I'm sorry for that, but I want you to know that we do have some projects in place, projects planned, and staff does not forget about this in between our updates with you and emails with you. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague here from Coconino County Board of Supervisors, Geronimo Vasquez, who will offer his welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. As mentioned, I'm Geronimo Vasquez, Supervisor, District 2, current Vice Chair. First off, I would like to thank all of you community members that are here for your patience as we go through this project. Change is hard. My parents live close to where some of this change is happening, and I see it on a daily basis. And I understand some of the anxiety that it creates doing this. I wake up in the morning sometimes and I can hear some of the construction going. So as we move forward, we're actually really lucky to be having this project, and so we're looking to implement to help mitigate the risk of flood the best we can. There's no amount of mitigation that we can put that will eliminate all the risk, but we believe that based on the plans that the teams have put together, that we have a good plan moving forward. And so we just wanted to have that opportunity tonight to share that with you and answer questions, so that way you're comfortable with the project moving forward. And before I leave, I just wanted to say a thank you to our partners involved in these projects, which include the City of Flagstaff, Tiffany Construction, Natural Channel Design, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and the U.S. Forest Service. Tonight, like I said, you'll hear some detail on the project, and hopefully it'll answer all your questions, and if not, there will be staff afterwards to answer questions if you have additional questions. Thank you. And I'm not sure who I'm passing on next.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Overton. I serve as the city's Public Works Director. And it's good to see you all. We haven't seen our friends from the Spruce Wash in a while, and it's been a lot of work over the winter months. And tonight, as our electeds had shared with you, we are going to go through a lot of good information. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Since we've had the success of the bond election in November, we have literally started the day after that. We had our last community update late in the year, but we have made substantial progress as we've moved to not only completing projects on Forest, and you'll hear the Flood Control District talk about those. There's a project currently being built today at Parkway Basin, and then you'll see a suite of projects that is now being developed throughout the entire community of the Sunnyside area into Grandview and Paradise. You're going to learn a lot about those. You'll learn about the projects that are scheduled for this spring and for next fall. It is a 3-year suite of projects, but they are accelerated, and one of our best engineers will present those to you this evening on behalf of staff. And towards the end, you will have a great opportunity to talk about your specific questions. So tonight, we are going to get a monsoon outlook from our Weather Service friends. We're going to talk about those infrastructure projects. We're going to make sure you have everything you need to be as prepared as possible for your residences and your properties and your children and your pets, and what to do in the case of an emergency this summer should we receive some more flooding. We're going to have a general session where we'll talk some general high-level questions, normally 10 or 15 minutes, that are applied to the entire situation that we can kind of answer in a general sense. And then once it gets into more specific property questions, I would encourage us all to just kind of hold those specific questions. We have large maps in the back of the room with the models and it'll allow you an opportunity to really look and talk with the engineers of record at your specific location or your specific question in a much more detailed manner. So I'm going to turn it over very quickly here to Brian Komowski. He is our chief meteorologist at Belmont and always tells us good news.
Always, always. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Brian Komowski. I'm the meteorologist in charge, National Weather Service here in Flagstaff, Arizona. And I really appreciate you having me here today. This week is interesting. We're actually getting a preview of the monsoon here like we felt today. You saw the storms out there. We had some heavy rain out by the peaks. We coordinated with the city and the county today with some of the heavy rain that was falling. And that's really what the Weather Service is here to do. Our mission statement is to help protect lives and property. And within this specific situation, we're working very closely with the city, with the county on a daily basis as the storms form to try to coordinate the most effective warnings, advisories, and notifications for you. If you ever have any questions about, hey, is there a watch warning in my area, you can always come to our website. We have some information that will be very helpful anytime during this monsoon season. For the outlook of the monsoon, I can say keep your eye on the preview that we're getting this week. We have very monsoon-like conditions out there right now, okay? It's not our traditional monsoon that we see spin up in early July, but the atmospheric conditions are very similar, meaning the threat for heavy rain is there. It is there. Tomorrow we're expecting a very active day in our area. So keep in mind, stay alert, and be aware to the weather around you this week. Now, as we look toward the traditional monsoon that we typically see spin up, that circulation late in June, and then it really takes a grip in July. We really don't see any strong signals right now, which would lean us one way or the other as far as the total precipitation. It is forecast to be warmer than normal. But there are a couple factors we need to keep our eye on. As we all know, we had a very wet winter. Heck, there's still snow on some people's property in some areas. And when we see wet winters like this, especially over the desert Southwest, what it tends to do, there's actually a pretty strong correlation between a wet winter and the delayed onset of the monsoon. Okay, so one of the things we might say is a little later onset to our monsoon this year. That'd be consistent with some of the conditions we have. Also, we have some El Nino conditions developing, which have a weak correlation to drier than normal monsoons here in the Flagstaff area. And just recently, last week, I pulled about 12 to 14 analog years that looked like this year from the winter into the summer, and those all trended a bit drier than normal as well. So, we're looking perhaps for a delayed onset of the traditional monsoon this year, perhaps a bit drier than normal. And when you look at the Climate Prediction Center outlooks, those are very much in line with warmer than normal temperatures as seen in the left-hand panel, and little to no signal, perhaps trending or leaning a bit drier than normal in the right panel. Perhaps indeed because of the later onset of the monsoon will mean less opportunities for precipitation over that traditional period. Now keep in mind, we will have flooding rains. We will have some big storms. We will have weather that will in fact impact the wash this year. So stay tuned, be informed, and be safe. So thank you.
I think I'm next. Yes. All right. Good evening. My name is Julie Lead. I am one of the many consulting engineers that are working with the city on these suite of projects. Eli Reisner is the City of Flagstaff Capital Improvements Project Manager, and he couldn't be here tonight, so I am filling in for Eli, and I know he was really eager to present to you and to meet many of you. He is going to be working on these suite of projects from now until construction completion, so you will get to know Eli and recognize him in the community. So I know he's probably watching, so I hope you feel better soon. So some of you have seen this slide before. This is the suite of projects. We have 9 projects depicted on this exhibit, starting with number 1, the Grandview Drive reconstruction, moving to the Wedge Detention Basin, which is in that undeveloped area just next to the Cedar Safeway, just to the west. We have the Linda Vista Drive crossing, Cedar Avenue to Linda Vista Drive channel, Cedar Avenue crossing, Arroyo Seco Drive to Dortha channel, and Arroyo Seco Drive inlet. That suite of projects, 1 through 7, those are the Prop 441 improvement projects, funded projects. And then we have the Killip Basin's Inlet project, which is included with the scope of work, but it's a different funding source. And then we have the Parkway Basins, which the Flood Control District is here tonight to give you an update on. And we've had some great successes in completed flood projects as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through in detail each one of those projects, 1 through 7. Then I'll turn it over to the district, Flood Control District, to talk about the Parkway Basins project. All right. So the first one we'll start with is the Grandview Drive reconstruction. And for folks living on Grandview, you may have noticed surveyors in your neighborhood, geotechnical investigations underway. The proposed improvements to Grandview Drive include complete reconstruction of the street and the curb and gutter, and replacement of water and sewer infrastructure. So what we are doing, right now the street is crowned. So the highest point of the street is generally in the center, and then there's roll curb. There's just not a lot of stormwater capacity in the roadway, and we know that when it overtops at Linda Vista, it runs down Grandview, and instead of running in the street, it's running in people's yards and at your front doors. So what we propose to do is take that crown and actually invert it. So the lowest point of the road would generally be the center line of that road, which will pull some of that water out of the front yards and move it down the street. Some of the changes that you would see on Grandview right now, there is rolled curb. It's easier to get a tire on, and there aren't necessarily distinguished driveway openings. The curb is consistent throughout. So we'll be going to a vertical curb. And so that's something similar, when you walk out of City Hall today, it's got that flat face, about 6 inches tall. That's the type of curbing that we'll go to, and then driveway openings where there are currently driveways. That's the plan on Grandview. This is a project that my firm is working on, so I'm happy to answer questions. I'm going to introduce each one of the engineers that's working on specific projects. But if you have questions about this one after we're done with the presentation today, you can find me in the back of the room. I'd be happy to answer them. And the added benefit is when we are replacing water and sewer infrastructure, this means new water services from the main line in the road up to the water meter, and new sewer services up to the back of curb. All right. The second project is what we call the wedge, obviously based on the shape there. And the proposed improvements for the wedge, we're looking to take some of that water from Spruce Wash at Linda Vista, put it in a pipe, and take it into that area. That red triangle just depicts the general location. It will actually be in this lower portion of this wedge. It'll probably be in the lower 2/3 of this wedge. So you'll have a large underground pipe or box culvert. That decision hasn't been made yet, and it'll empty into a large detention basin here. The third project, this is the Linda Vista crossing, and we are proposing to replace the pipes that are there today with a box culvert, and that will improve the obviously the capacity and also allow us to peel off some of that water and send it to the wedge. That also includes the improvements between Linda Vista and Cedar Avenue. So increasing the capacity of this channel, it will likely be a hardened channel. What I mean by a hardened channel is either concrete or shotcrete through there because of the volume of water and the velocity. So I would like to introduce Joe Loveridge with J.E. Fuller. Joe, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand. Yep, that's Joe, everybody. Joe and J.E. Fuller are working on the Linda Vista crossing and the channel between Linda Vista and Cedar. So if you have questions after this presentation, please go see Joe about that particular section. Right, then we reach Cedar Avenue. And the proposal here is to also upsize the box. Either this box will be replaced with something that is larger, or another box will be added immediately adjacent to that. And that's something that's being worked through right now. Right. As we move downstream a little bit further, this is a photograph of the section between Dortha Avenue and Arroyo Seco. This is natural channel. So just upstream of this is where that crossing was constructed this summer. The Dortha Avenue crossing and those channel improvements were made. We anticipate those channel improvements to continue downstream. So what that channel looks like between Dortha Avenue and Cedar currently, that's what we envision for this section. And then that transitions into the Arroyo Seco improvements. We have temporary mitigation in place. This is a storm drain inlet. There is a 60-inch diameter pipe that's underground for a section of this channel, and that goes through the Arroyo Seco townhomes. And we are proposing, we want to continue using the capacity of that 60-inch pipe, but we need to reconfigure this inlet. And that also includes, this is the same photo, that was, or the same view. Here was that 60-inch pipe inlet here, and we call those eco blocks. Those were put up as a temporary measure last year, and they're actually working great. Part of this project at Arroyo Seco is to convey that water through Ponderosa Park. So here with us tonight, I believe I saw the SWI Ardura team. Let's see, Stephen Irwin and Kayla, if you wouldn't mind standing up back there, wave. Everybody, Stephen's on the right, Kayla's on my left, sorry. So Stephen and Kayla will be here. They are working on the design for the Cedar Box, the channel between Dortha and Arroyo Seco, and the Arroyo Seco Inlet, as well as the improvements across Ponderosa Park. All right, so I know that you are very interested and eager to hear about the schedule and some of the milestones. So November, it really was the day after, as Scott mentioned, that this work was underway. We have the Grandview Utilities final plans are in the works, and those will be going in front of City Council in July for approval. That will be the first scope of work that the contractor starts on, is the water and sewer improvements down Grandview Drive. We have to do that first. They will need to watch the weather and start that work as soon as it's safe. We can't have trenches or surface material that's not asphalt, that's open if we have a flood event and water goes down Grandview. In August, all of the modeling will be complete for, at least the preliminary modeling will be complete for this entire suite of projects. We're excited about that because we really want to share, once all of these projects are complete, what the benefits are, what they look like. We don't have that for you yet tonight because we just finished up the survey work and the geotechnical work. So just know that's coming in August, and we will plan a meeting and make that presentation to you, and also provide maps so you can see what the impacts are, those positive impacts. In December, final plans are due and complete, and in February of next year, we will be asking City Council to award the rest of the work aside from the Grandview Utilities and we anticipate 2025 completion of construction. You might ask, well, which projects are going to go first? I can really only tell you right now that Grandview is going to go first, will be the first project in the suite of projects. And the reason I can't share exact schedule yet is because we don't know it. Some of the things have to do with traffic control and other projects that are under construction. We can't just close Linda Vista, Cedar, and Fourth all at once. That would not work for emergency services and for access for folks. So we are coordinating those projects together, some other projects that the city is working on. To make sure that we have good traffic flow, but it will be it'll be a challenge. And to coin a term that Lucinda always uses, hang in there with us. It's going to be great. So this is great. We've got the construction team with us here tonight. So I would like to introduce you to the constructions team. So if you three could stand up, please. We've got Jason Woods on the right, Joel Reinen in the middle, and Marco Spagnolo on the left. They are with Eagle Mountain Construction. They are the construction manager at risk. They are participating with the city in the design phase and moving into construction. And that is an incredibly expedited schedule. The speed at which these projects are moving forward is quite extraordinary. All right. With that, engineers will all be in the back of the room when they're done with the presentation, but now I'd like to move to an update from the Flood Control District and the Parkway Sediment Basin Project.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's good to see some of you again, and we've got a tremendous amount underway right now, of which Parkway Sediment Basins is one of those projects. First, I think everyone's pretty aware that we completed all the on-forest work and all the other work upstream of the city last spring. And although we didn't have any really large rainfall events, it performed well, and performed pretty well too through the snow melt. So that work is all completed, and the last component of the work is the work that's underway now, as I mentioned, at Parkway Sediment Basins, which is being partially funded by the Natural Resources Conservation Service, as well as funded by the Flood Control District. What occurred there is we got a late start, and we got a late start for a really good reason. As you just heard from Julie, the city is doing a lot of work downstream of Parkway, looking at a number of projects that are in engineering right now. And there were some issues that came up relative to those projects, and it was important that everybody step back and really look at, okay, what did that mean for that entire corridor? And so that was important. We stepped back. The city completed its review, and they made a decision. We made a decision with them to move forward with Parkway Sediment Basins as had been planned. Unfortunately, at that point, we could not complete all three of the basins. We could only complete one of the three basins. So that's the work that's underway right now. The plan is to complete the other two sediment basins, one that's similar in size and one that's smaller, next fall. And that was really based on feedback from the contractors who had proposed on that project, that asking them what could they think that they could complete in the time frame that we had remaining before monsoon. So that work is underway. I think we're probably about 75-80% complete at this point, and the intent is to complete that and then come back next fall and complete the other two basins. The project is very much still needed. Reducing the sediment is critical to anything that Julie just discussed. They can do everything they want downstream, but if it fills with sediment, we all know it won't perform. So everything we can do to reduce down sediment is really critical to everything downstream working effectively for mitigation downstream as well. I know that the construction, it's close to probably some of your homes. It's disruptive, it's not fun, it's dusty, all of those fun things that go on with construction, noisy. But this is part of the overall plan. And it's, again, it's an integrated system from everything that was done above you and that everybody agreed with, and we got approvals for above you. And now, we're working down through that system. So hang in there with us. That is my motto. And we should be done pretty soon and be out of your neighborhood there fairly soon. So with that, Mike's going to share some of the graphics for the project, and then we will sit down and we'll be around for a little bit afterward if people have questions.
Yeah, I only have one quick slide here, but the overall project, as you can see, is 3 total basins. We are working on the one furthest downstream on the right on that screen. As Lucinda mentioned, we're probably about 70% plus complete at this point in time. But that should be completed by June 30th of this year, with the other phase happening likely fall and before the next monsoon, before the 2024 monsoons. As Lucinda mentioned, the basins are very important. Many of you are aware of the work that we did above, upstream of these basins, up on the forest and up through Mount Eldon Estates, and even at the end of Paradise, the Paradise Fan. Those work great to reduce the amount of sediment that's coming to the city, but they aren't able to completely remove all the sediment. And this is our last chance that we have before all of that sediment reaches the city. Basically, all the work that's upstream clears out potentially as much as 78% of the sediment from the burn scar, but that remaining 22% is still quite a load. So this project, when complete, when phase 1 and phase 2 is complete, has the capacity to hold about 5,300 cubic yards of sediment before it gets down to Linda Vista. And and when grading is complete, you can see right now, those of you that have looked at it, we've got quite a bit of bare earth out there as the project is still under construction. But when it's complete, it'll be completely reseeded, and we'll put down straw mats, erosion control blankets, to help foster the germination of the seeds that we're putting down. To let basically it's native grass seeds that we're putting down. And when it's done, hopefully we'll have a little bit of good weather, a little bit of moisture, and that grass will take hold. And as Lucinda said, we'll be in the back once questions come up.
Sarah, do you want to wait for questions at the end? Or?
Okay.
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 Great.
Catch
And
you
we'll
back.
be in the back a little bit too.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Tim Carter. I'm with Coconino County Emergency Management. Again, good to see some familiar faces. We have one quick slide, but for us, it's pretty important. I know, usually I ask, raise your hand if you're signed up for emergency notifications, but I know everybody in here already is because you've heard us time and time again. So I want to give you some information to take home, tell your friends, tell your family. Make sure you're signed up for emergency notifications. We can't stress this enough. This is the way that we will disseminate all of our flooding alerts. This is an all hazards thing. So in addition to the flood alerts that you guys have undoubtedly received for the last couple of years now, we send them out for fires, floods, any kind of hazard that's going to disrupt your normal day of life that's an emergency situation. This is how the city and the county and the flood control district all come together to send that message out. This is administered through our office. So when they call us to say, here's the situation, we are able to go in with just a matter of minutes and craft that message and make sure that we can send that out to you. We're able to target that message to send it only to certain specific areas. So, the county's large. We want to make sure we're not sending a Spruce Wash flash flood to someone in Page, obviously, so we can kind of come in, tailor that message to make sure you guys are receiving the info that you need. So the real easy way now is, how do you sign up? So we've got a couple of different ways. The easiest way is if you've got a smartphone, and usually I will hold up my QR code and make you pretend you're going to take my picture and make me feel good. But you can scan that QR code on the screens up above, or if you go look in the back, we have business cards that have the QR code on there. It's two-sided. So the first side shows you scan this QR code. There's also a website, coconino.az.gov/ready. Go sign up. It is free. It'll direct you to our vendors page. It's a Smart 911. So if you see that, yes, that's the right place. You go in, you can put in all of your information for you and your family. There is some information there that helps us when we have to look at potential evacuations, that allow you to self-report any access or functional needs for either you or your family. You can provide that information when we start looking at possible evacuations. We're able to pull that up, give that to first responders, so they have a list of houses who might need a little extra help during evacuations. So that's completely voluntary. You don't have to provide that, but it's a great service of this new company that we've had for the last few years. So take a look at that. The other thing is, I'll show you in the back side of this card is another QR code, and I'll give you guys a sneak peek at this. We have been working closely with the Flagstaff Police Department, Flagstaff Fire Department, City Emergency Management. They have really been putting in a lot of work for evacuation zones, which will also help us get our messaging out a lot more effectively and a lot more efficiently. If you go on now, you'll be able to see what your zone is. You can go put in your address and see what that is. It's still in draft stage. We expect to have that finalized and really ready for public distribution for you guys to see probably in the next couple of weeks, but you can go take a sneak peek at the draft now. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. The one big question we get is, do you sell my information? Absolutely not. There are policies from the county and the provider that we're not going to provide your information to anywhere, so don't worry about that. It is safe and secure. So we will, we've got some other tools and different enhancements that we'd love to talk to you guys about, so feel free to chat us up in the back. We'll be here along with Director West Easton, so let us know. That's it. Thank you. Ed, you're up.
All right, thank you, Tim. So Ed Shank, City Flagstaff Stormwater Manager. Kind of teeing off from what Tim was talking about. So we have those emergency alerts that go out by the county. So what is the backdrop on that? So what's the mechanism for it? And if you've been here for a while, we've have these 3 thresholds from the rain gauges. We have 4 rain gauges up in the museum fire area. And they were set, the thresholds were set right after the fire in 2019 for when to send out those alerts. And we've kept those thresholds through time. They worked really well in 2021 when we had those flood events. And then in 2022, obviously we had a rather dry year, but we had a few, I think 3, I have to look at it, 3 events that just barely hit those thresholds. So if you're around, you heard those sirens go off, you got those rave alerts from the county, and we didn't really see much. We saw some water in the channel. It got pretty high in Dortha, but it didn't really overtop, didn't do a whole lot. So we went back, the city, the county, our consultant, Joe Leverage, you're going to hear from in a little bit, J.E. Fuller, and we took a look at it both in terms of what has happened in terms of capital improvements, so what has changed that the county has done in terms of those alluvial fan restorations and other work, and then what also has changed in terms of the watershed. So what kind of recovery have we seen up there? So we went up this fall, a large group of us, and took a look at the watershed at different locations, and really took a look at what that recovery might look like, or does look like. And there is a little bit of watershed recovery. If you go up there, there are some more grasses, a little bit of herbs, a little bit of trees are coming up in certain areas. And we refined the model based on that, so our flood model. What we're seeing is that there is a change mostly at the very low end. So those kind of frequent storms, we are seeing a change in the flow patterns. When you get to those larger storms, we're not seeing that change. But with that, we did change the thresholds as we saw them. So at threshold 1, that was 0.25 inches in 15 minutes. That's been revised up to 0.5 inches in 15 minutes. The threshold 2, that was 0.4 inches in 15 minutes, has been changed to 0.8. And threshold 3, that was 0.75, has been changed up to 1.2. So that's based on the new modeling and the empirical data that we've seen out there. So you shouldn't hear a siren until we start seeing these thresholds. And you shouldn't see those alerts as well. And with that, I will move it on to Joe, who will be giving us a little bit more of an update on that flood risk assessment map. This has also been shared back in February, but just as a quick update as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I'm Joe Lovrich with J.E. Fuller. Just like what Ed said, our role within the modeling aspect of things is to really keep an eye on the watershed and understand what is going on, what indicators do we see that inform the flood risk downstream. We want to, as accurate as we can get about what the flood risk is, and so you're looking at how the watershed is recovering, and we went through all this in February, and you're also looking at, like Ed pointed to, the empirical data. So there's this watershed is well studied. There's a lot of information that comes out from every single storm event as far as how different portions of the watershed responded, and that then feeds back to us to say, okay, we see this was expected, or maybe we see something that wasn't quite expected and one part of the watershed is more active than the other. And all that plays back into maintaining a current baseline flood risk. And what's important about that and going forward is come August, when we have conceptual plans built for all of these different projects, all of those new designs feed back into our existing model. And then we have to make sure that the results that are coming out of that model are what we expect. So if we're seeing maybe increased flow in one spot that we didn't think would happen, then we need to go back and tweak our design a little bit. Or if we want to make sure what we're hoping to get out of these projects happens. And it comes through a good baseline set of modeling. And so that's all I'm going to go into today. Do I have another slide? Yeah, it's the maps that you're going to see back here on the tables. I'm happy to talk through any of the aspects of it. I think what Ed pointed to that I wanted to point out is it's really easy to look at a smaller storm. We had some storms last year that had some high intensities, some intensities for 15, 20 minutes, but the total depth of the storm over an hour or two wasn't really deep. So we saw some response from the watershed in those, but it was a lot less than it was previous years. So in our modeling, it reflects that. What happens though is as you kick up to a larger storm and you add another inch of rain on top of that already saturated watershed, the response is very different. So it's easy to get complacent and see small rainstorms, not much runoff, but there's still a high potential for a lot of runoff in a bigger storm. So any questions you have, meet me in the back on that.
Hi everyone, my name's Chase McLeod, Project Manager, City Flagstaff Stormwater. I'll briefly talk about short-term mitigations. We're still doing engineering assessments for those who have not had one previously. You can call the call center to get that scheduled. As far as mitigating, we're still recommending mitigating to the previous maps that Joe and Ed just talked about. As far as replacing damaged sandbags, we're only recommending outward-facing and damaged sandbags. If you'd like to request a dumpster or empty pallets to replace any of those needed sandbags, you can call that call center to get scheduled. One note about empty pallets, if we drop that off, just make sure you keep it in the city right away and only stack about 50 sandbags on it. neatly, just so it's easier for our staff to pick them up. And we still have sandbag locations with pre-filled and self-filled. That's at Aztec Street by Thorpe Park and King Street. I'll briefly talk about flood insurance through National Flood Insurance Program. You can click this website. They have lots of information on how to get a policy. They've got the specific steps needed to get that, as well as numbers you can call with any specific questions. It does need to be renewed annually if you already have a policy. As many of you know, your normal home insurance policy doesn't cover flooding, so keep that in mind. And one other note is that if you're getting it through National Flood Insurance Program, there's usually a 30-day waiting period. So if you want a policy before monsoons, now's the time to get that started. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Thompson, and I am Volunteer and Event Coordinator, City of Flagstaff Sustainability Office. We do have several volunteer events coming up, one this coming Friday, and then one on June 7th related to sandbag filling. And at those events, volunteers who have signed up will help fill sandbags, assess sandbags, and based on the call volume to the service line that Chase mentioned, help residents who have requested service to help remove sandbags or place sandbags around homes. So if you are one of those folks that needs assistance with that, the first step is to call that service line, and then we can engage volunteers to assist with those projects. And then every Saturday, every first Saturday, May, June, July, and August, we have a watershed cleanup series. And this series of events is dedicated to removing debris, things that may block water flow in the Rio de Flag channels, and that includes removing shopping carts, lumber, snow shovels, things like that that may be obstructing some of the stormwater infrastructure, as well as removing vegetation that may be impeding flow or could capture litter and other debris flowing down the stream channels. So if you want to sign up for one of those or know folks who would be interested, please contact me. I'll also be at the back of the room after the presentation, so if you have questions about that, please let me know. And there's a lot of other ways to be prepared for monsoon season, and I'll turn it over to Daniel to go through some of those.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Kelly. I'm the City of Flagstaff Emergency Manager. I'm just going to run through a monsoon season checklist, preparedness. Like Tim was talking about, the emergency notifications. Make sure you're signed up for the rave. Make sure your neighbors signed up. Make sure your loved ones are signed up. Spread the word. Make sure everybody's informed. The emergency alert thresholds. Ed talked about it pretty good. They changed, and they have changed again this year, so more information with Ed. Risk assessment maps, talk to the city, talk to the county, talk to the construction companies back there. Understand your risk to your home. Assess the temporary mitigations, like Chase was talking about. Look at your outward-facing sandbags. Do they need to be replaced? Are they ripped? Are your neighbors ripped? Help them out. Volunteer days. Neighbors helping neighbors. Communities helping communities, right? Strengthen numbers. If your neighbor or somebody you know of is elderly or needs of assistance, work together. Sign up as a community. Go help them out or contact the city. And then flood insurance. So it is very important you purchase flood insurance, but also just a thing to know, after a presidential declared disaster, heaven forbid we ever get one of those, there is individual assistance that becomes available. But individual assistance is not made to get you fully back up on your feet and replace everything. It's just meant to give you a little tiny boost. So that's why it's very, very important that you take it seriously and you look at your flood insurance. And with that, turn it over to Scott.
All right, so clearly lots of information tonight. You really do have the experts in the rooms, and I've said it before, this has been one of the funnest projects of my career and many of our careers. It's super cool. We go through it from a logical standpoint of what makes sense and how do we create the best benefit for the community. And this area is really in a unique position post-wildfire to be on some of the best engineering side. Now we're moving to construction, which is really what we wanted to get to. So we're getting closer. Let's take some general questions until about 6:27 or so, if you have that many. If you don't, we'll get to the map sooner, but I'll give you about 10 minutes. Let's just see if we have some general questions, and I'll field those and get those to the correct person. Sat, thanks.
Hello.
I'm shy. Happy to hear that you're going to put down fiber with native seeds under it. Native seeds are going to have a hard time because we're down well below topsoil, and so they're going to have a hard time getting into that base soil. In our neighborhood, Paradise Road, and I just hate to see the wedge go, but you know, these are open space parcels, used to be. And so I think in the long run, you know, in the short run, nobody cares. We want to get this done and be safe. In the long run, we want this to be open space and maybe usable for hiking or kids playing or whatever. After the work at the end of Paradise Road, there was no invasive weed mitigation. My wife and myself and some neighbors got up there and pulled easily 1,000 Russian thistle plants in that big, long airstrip. But we need a better system than a couple of neighbors, although it could be an organization of neighbors, but it needs to be organized because the non-natives are going to have an easier time propagating in that nasty soil than the natives. And so I would just request that maybe turn it over to open space in the city, have them organize it, maybe get some neighbors educated so that when we're out there walking, we know what to pluck and what not to pluck. You know, you get 15 plants out there this year, they pop up, you pluck them, you're done. Next year there's 250, and next year there's 1,000. So we want to be right on top of it when they pop up. So it takes the knowledge and the organization. Thank you.
Yep, excellent suggestions, and agreed. We do not want the non-native weeds. Tough one.
Hey, Scott.
See you.
This is actually a question for Julie. On the wedge project that you talked about, you're going to be diverting water, it sounds like, from maybe where the Linda Vista crossing is down to the wedge. Is there a priority system or some automated system that, you know, you're going to fill that first before you send water down the channel, or down the channel first? How does that fit into how water gets there versus out in the road versus down the channel?
Right now, we're looking at 2 ways of collecting water and sending it to the wedge. The first way would be right at the inlet, so right by your family's home. There would be another pipe. There would be a box culvert, and then next to that in the concrete, the wing wall is what we call it, the head wall, there would be another pipe that would collect that water. It might be, you know, a little bit higher, so that once the flow really starts to increase, we peel it off at that point. Then the second location that we're looking at is once it overtops and starts going down Linda Vista, to pick it up perhaps in a series of catch basins or trench drain, some of that extra, and sending it down. We haven't figured out yet how much of each to be able to do that, but most of it will probably be picked up at that inlet just upstream.
And excess still goes down Grandview. The extra still goes down
Yes, and then the extra would still go down Grandview. Yep.
How would you prevent those from clogging with sediment? I got an outdoor boy, so I'm good.
Yeah, we got people online, so they do need to hear that. So if you could say it again, that'd be great.
What's the plan for not allowing that to get clogged up with sediment?
So the fantastic thing is the amount of work that has been done on forest and also on another parcel, a privately owned parcel upstream. So the County Flood Control District received funding from the Forest Service as well as the NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Services, through grant funding, and they completed a series of alluvial fans, which are intended to capture that sediment and debris. And so that is what is in place now upstream, which is fantastic, and we saw the benefits of that this past summer because it was completed before summer 2023. And then the next step further down is what Mike and Lucinda described, the parkway basins, and those are just upstream of the infrastructure that we're talking about today and intended to capture that sediment and debris.
But nothing there on site.
Nothing at the inlets. It'll be something, whether that's going to be bollards or a grate or something for any larger debris that may come through and to help with safety. But the intent is to capture that on forest and keep all of that sediment and debris on forest or on open space. Most. That's a very important distinguishing thing to say. Lucinda said most.
So my current understanding for the sandbags and retaining walls is that if you want to actually build a retaining wall, it has to be offset from the street and the water main. Have you guys given any consideration changing that? Just because I don't think you could ever fully guarantee on Grandview, for example, preventing a lot of water flowing down there. And the sandbags, they degrade, they fall apart. Are you thinking of like allowing us to actually build a flood wall, but a permanent solution that's closer to the street?
I think that would be a good one to talk with the team about specific to your parcel. But one thing to note, on the southern portion of Grandview, the water line is actually it's still in city right-of-way, of course, but it's behind the curb. And so that makes it a little bit more challenging with some of the landscape features that you're talking about. The proposed improvements are to bring that water main into the roadway. And so that conflict would not exist in the future.
Okay, thank you.
And then I think if I can just add, I think the benefit of that inverted crown and that vertical curb will also show pretty good benefit on Grandview. That's one of the primary reasons to get as much as that water. Yeah, sure. To pull as much of that water down into that lower crown of the street. So that was one of the primary objectives, was to really try to capture and let as much convey as possible down Grandview without impacting the homes as much.
In the sediment basins, will there also be standing water
Mike, you
that
want to take it?
doesn't drain out? And I also wanted to know, right now there's like this orange fence, and there's lots of children in the neighborhood. Is there going to be a permanent safety barrier?
So the orange fence is just a temporary construction fence while the contractor's there. Once the contractor pulls out, the job is done, the orange fence will be gone. But no, there is no safety barrier that's planned for around it. The basins are relatively shallow. They're only about 4 feet deep at their deepest point. And the side slopes down in are only a 4 to 1, very gentle slope, 4 feet horizontal for every 1 foot vertical that you go down in. So they're designed to be that shallow so that if anyone was able to get down or was down in there, they could walk themselves out. Now, during a flood event, that area, like the rest of the Spruce Wash, as you saw back in 21, it's not a place that anybody wants to be, and they're just part of that wash system.
And they drain out.
And they drain out. So all that rock that's being placed in there is essentially acts as a drain. It's not going to be 100% impervious. There's going to be a lot of void spaces between the riprap, and that will allow the water to escape out. Now, the sediment is going to be held in there, and that's going to be wet for a while until it dries out. But the standing water should be a minor issue.
It doesn't become a lake.
Right.
It always drains out. I have this gentleman here, and then, let's go there, then we'll come here, then we'll go to that one, Yoli. Hey, Jim. Good, how are you?
So we back the Spruce Wash from Monte Vista, and we look at that wash as it goes across. So as you guys channelize that and you fill it in with concrete, that winds back and forth across those properties. Are you going to straighten that? And are all those pine trees in the wash all going away?
Do you want it? This is Joe Lovrich. He's the engineer on that segment.
That's a good question. So the way we're looking at that section is there's the power poles down the wash, there's big trees, backyard fences, railroad tie walls, buildings that are right up against the wash. So there's a lot of constraints. So when we look at that, we have to consider upstream at Linda Vista, we're going to be allowing about twice as much flow to enter that wash than that can get there right now. So when that happens, you have to design so that the scour, the erosive power of the water isn't going to just rip out the improvements that you just had or move into a backyard. So what we're looking at, we're in the conceptual design phase. So what we're looking at is we're trying to find the best alternative that fits the area the best, understanding that we're rather not do a clear cut, but there are some trees that will have to come down. So it's an iterative process to find the best solution. That's all I got for you now. When we come back with the 30% designs, that'll be a good picture of what we're planning through there.
Are you also considering that that's an animal interface and that we see skunks and raccoons and mountain lions and deer that interact all through that interface every night?
Yeah, I am. And so with that wash, I mean, in an ideal case, we're going to be able to try and slope it in such a way where we can get the velocities down to keep the bottom of the channel as natural as possible, but you can't get rid of all hard elements through there. So there is going to be some concrete, there is going to be some hardened features, and the extent of that we still have to work out. Yep.
This gentleman here,
Let's see, I have two questions, actually.
Okay.
Do you have a calculation on the cubic feet per second threshold of how once you redesign Grandview, how much water will be able to flow down there without going into people's
I think it
living
might be
rooms?
best when you get back to the maps. Are there some maps with the actual CFS on them tonight? Yeah. Okay. Do you want to answer that one, or do we want to look at a map and talk that one through? Proposed numbers? CFS on Grandview, right?
Mm-hmm.
After, post?
Yeah, post redesign, post fix.
So the modeling is not complete to show what it would be in a 2-inch 45-minute event, but the design that we're targeting right now is a couple hundred CFS in the roadway prism on Grandview. Right now, it's probably 10 CFS or less.
Yeah, okay. Second question, probably for Mike. You designed the basins to hold 5,300 cubic yards of sediment.
Right.
Is there an ongoing plan for, I'm assuming over time, they will fill up and to be cleaned out?
That, the maintenance of that, the basins become the city, part of the city infrastructure to be maintained.
That'll take out. Gotcha.
Ed can answer that.
Yeah, so we'll definitely maintain those basins, just like the other basins that we have. So the Killup School Regional Detention Basin, as well as the Schultz Creek Detention Basins. So, I mean, we're working with the state right now, so DFFM, we are getting funding from them for additional equipment. We did buy a loader, what was that, a year ago, 2 years ago? Last year, wow, time both flies and goes slow. So we did buy one loader through that, as well as an excavator. We did get additional funding this year, $750,000 from DFFM for additional equipment. So we do have another loader that we're looking to get, a skid steer, as well as another remote mini excavator. Since we have one, we need a larger one. We're working on that. So we are getting that equipment lined up, also new staffing as well. So there will be more staff for this more typical maintenance cycle that we're going to have now. Thanks.
It does speak to a new maintenance obligation, though, that we have historically not had. Post-wildfire burn scars, I mean, our goal is to keep as much sediment as possible on forests, see some recovery. If Ed never has to clean them out, that'll be great. We know, though, that they are gonna require some maintenance, and we have to prepare for that, and these are our best-case scenarios, but it is not ideal. And then how do you schedule that maintenance in between storms and, you know, in larger scale events? There's trouble if they're full, but we're gonna have to just figure out a way to make sure we're staying on top of them, and it is new to our inventory. We do not have a lot of big detention basins that require that much effort. But Ed's done a good job of trying to find contractor help, and how do we keep these cleaned out? And let's hope that most of that sediment stays on forest. That would be ideal. Yep. Young lady behind him here in the glasses. Yep. I guarantee it, she was next. She's been very patient.
It's actually just a follow-on question to your comment about the retention basins and water retention. And I guess my question is, are these retention basins going to become, possibly when they get filled up, a place for mosquito breeding?
Yeah, no, they really do drain out. So they're designed to be drained and available for the next storm event. So even Killup School drains in less than 24? Stephen, does Killup drain in less than 24 if full? Yes. So these are normally designed to drain out and be empty so that they don't have standing water, those sorts of issues. They need to be available for the next storm event. So that is why they are designed, and they regulate that flow as they exit those detention basins. And I'm assuming Parkway is 24 or less?
It'll be about 36 now.
36 or less. So should be flowing water. Let's take a couple more and then we'll jump to the engineers.
So I just had a quick question about what to expect what these are going to look like in 5 years. Is there going to be any kind of beautification? I mean, right now we have a giant at the Parkway Basin.
Oh, Parkway Basins.
We have a big forest glen that's been scooped out and is just a gash in the hillside now.
Yeah, it looks like Lucinda's ready to answer this one.
I have to be honest with you. We're investing right now $100 million north of here. And there is right now no resources to do any kind of work like that. We'll reseed it, but beyond that, I don't have any resources to do that. Right now, protecting, trying to protect lives and mitigate impacts for the other 9 watersheds that have been impacted is the priority. Have to be direct and honest with you. Down the road, maybe some opportunities. That is city property. It'll be up to the city to decide what they want to do with it. They may be able to get grants or other things through, parks funds and things like that. So there may be some opportunity, down the road, but it'll be up to the city to decide what they want to do at that point. Wish we could do more, but got our hands full.
Let's go last question here and then we'll jump to the tables.
Okay, so with the regrading and utility improvements on Grandview, I think you mentioned that that was kind of slated to start in June or July, and mentioned that you'd be monitoring the weather with that project. I guess, how do you monitor the unpredictability of a monsoon thunderstorm?
Yeah, so design will be complete and the construction contract will go in front of City Council the first week of July. And then that will authorize the contractor to proceed with that work. The first thing that they are going to do is order all of those materials. And so that'll be July and August, final permitting. So from a timing and sequencing point, that construction will likely commence closer towards the end of monsoon season. As far as construction protocol, I encourage you to talk with Jay, Joel, or Marco back there about how they would process that and the safety measures that they would have in place during construction to protect the work and to protect you and the residents.
Okay, yeah, so it sounds like construction wouldn't start until post-monsoon season.
Yes, towards the tail end.
I guess to follow that up, I think it was kind of mentioned briefly, has there been any talk about moving those water boxes closer to the street? So if folks do want to invest in some sort of more permanent flood mitigation, that they don't have to put them through the middle of their front yards, currently where the water boxes are?
So right now, the water meters are located in public right-of-way. So if a resident was looking to construct an improvement like that, it would need to be on private property, on the property line, and not in public right-of-way, unless there is some exception made for that. That would be a city decision to make, but typically that would be a private property improvement.
And no exceptions have been made yet for the Grandview neighborhood?
I look to staff to answer that one. I'm not aware of any.
All right. Folks, it's good to see you all. We're glad you're out here. Let's have a good, safe summer with some gentle rains. Let's keep everything going in the right direction. Again, all the engineers are here. All the city staff is here at your resource till 7. So let's ask site-specific questions. And again, we thank you for coming out. And we look forward to chatting with you a little bit more in the back. Thanks, everyone.